Good evening. I've got some info to share with you that's pretty important. What we're going to do is we're going to go to this video with Larry Johnson. He's going to give a good amount of information on Kash Patel and also January 6th, some inside information. So let's start there.
He asked you, the Capitol Police in that fake January 6th committee, they didn't tell the truth, did they? Patel, no, not just them, many others. And lying under oath is a federal offense and they should be investigated for it. Do you believe that about the police officers?
That's a general statement and a mischaracterization of what I said. I encourage you to read the rest of the interview. This is why snippets of information are often misleading and detrimental to this committee's advice and consent process.
Well, if you consent, I would love to have 5 hours of questions and then I could read the whole transcript.
You've got 2 minutes.
Wow.
Looking for help with digestion?
Uh-oh.
For men, our daily
Pardon
probiotic
me.
combines salt
Pardon
palmetto
me.
with 13
So
clinically
rude.
studied strains.
There we go.
You've got 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, again, with Kash, I think we've talked, I don't know Kash personally, but Kash and his entire investigation of Russiagate started with me. Okay? I'm the one that went to Devin Nunes on March. I still got to show you the text message to say, hey, Devin, I need to see you. And I went and told him, I said, look, the CIA, NSA, the Brits, they're spying on Trump. And I explained how it was being done. Because I'd heard, even at that point, I'd heard that, been told that going back to like 2015, John Brennan had set up a special task force inside CIA that was collecting intelligence on all the presidential candidates, but then it specifically became focused upon destroying Donald Trump. And so I told Devin who he needed to talk to that could, get him pushed in the right direction. And as a result of that conversation, Devin went to the White House 3 days later. And then, boy, when he came out, man, the press was attacking him right and left for what are you doing? And then the Democrats went at him hot and heavy. Well, the guy that he tasked to look into this was Kash. And that, so Kash started that investigation and uncovered all of the nefarious efforts to destroy Donald Trump by the intelligence community. And in that particular case, with when he's talking about January 6th, that January 6th was an FBI setup. And not just the FBI. I can't rule out that other elements of the intelligence community were involved, but we know for a fact that members of the Azov Battalion, Ukrainian neo-Nazis, were brought to that rally by Democrats, by the Democrat operatives. They were in the crowd specifically.
Whoa. I don't remember hearing this before, so if you heard it before, you're ahead of me. But I mean, I'm listening to this morning, and that part I just was like, oh, whoa, okay. The Nazi battalion group, Azov, was infiltrated in that protest. And we already knew the feds were there, but wow, and he says from the Democrats brought them in? Whoa.
To create an incident. The FBI deployed at least, we're told now, 20 undercover operatives, again, for the express purpose of creating an incident. We have that one, Ray, whatever his name is, this former Marine out of Arizona, who the night before this was seen inciting people. Tomorrow we got to go into the Capitol. He was working for the FBI. What they wanted to do was create an incident that would feed the narrative that Donald Trump tried to create an insurrection, and therefore you could use the full weight of the federal government to crush him, which is exactly what they tried to do. Trump did not incite a riot, despite the Democrats repeat that's what happened. They claimed that these rioters killed police. They didn't. It was the police. The Capitol Hill police are the ones that killed at least 4 of the Trump supporters.
And you'll see if you've been watching the hearings how they bring this up all the time. They've beaten and they killed police officers. They hurt police officers. They did this and that. Now, he didn't get into injured police officers, but still, the fact that they didn't kill any of them. And, I don't recall seeing that when I was watching, but, live. But again, I don't think I watched the whole protest. But, they really switched this around.
One Capitol Hill policeman shot a woman, Ashley. She wasn't carrying a weapon. She didn't pose any kind of imminent threat to his life. And yet he shot and killed her. So it was Capitol Hill police using the violence. But again, the narrative that was spun, the abject lies, that this was entirely about trying to prevent Joe Biden from becoming president. And look, the fact of the matter is that election was stolen from Trump. They absolutely stole it.
Okay. Again, all these things that I just haven't heard Larry say before, and wow, okay. Now, again, I hadn't looked into the whole stolen 2020 election. I mean, it became more and more clear to me over the last year that, something wasn't right there. And then the further along months went by, I started to really suspect something was rigged at that time. But now, to hear Larry say that, okay.
And it's also sort of Donald Trump's fault that he didn't take steps to prevent that. He should have had an organized, coordinated legal effort right after the day after the election to challenge the irregularities that took place with voting in places like Georgia, Pennsylvania. Instead, it was scattered about. They had at least 3 different groups of people working the issue at the time, none of it coordinated by Trump. But all of this is just, again, a way to attack Kash Patel. I frankly wish Patel would have been direct with him, come back, said, damn right, you guys you fabricated this. And no, none of the protesters killed police. The one police officer who died of a stroke a day or 2 after this, that he was not hit in the head.
No.
He just, had poor health practices.
Okay, so that's important information. Yes, well, Trump learned in this 2024 election to definitely have people out there checking for irregularities, voter fraud, rigging, whatever you want to call it. He definitely went that route this time. So anyway, somewhat surprising, shocking in a way that I hadn't heard these things before. Maybe you all already had heard this before, but I hadn't. So I wanted to share it with you. The other thing I'm going to share with you is the information on Edward Snowden, because Tulsi Gabbard especially was grilled on this over and over again, trying to get her to be, as she said, I'm nobody's puppet. they're trying to make her their puppet, the Congress people, who almost everybody in there is part of the rotten, corrupted, deep state, trenched, whatever you want to call these, swamp or whatever, rotten abyss of people that are against this, calling Edward Snowden a traitor when he saw what happened. I don't know if you saw anything on Bill Binney, but he was a NSA codebreaker for 30 years. He was a man of integrity and very smart, very good. You should watch the documentary on it. It's really good. I forget what it's called though. Something American. I will, if I find it, I'll try to attach it below this video. It's well worth watching. But I'm gonna play Megyn Kelly's interview with Glenn Greenwald, who was the award-winning journalist. He's the one that received the documents that Edward Snowden had gotten with the surveillance, the illegal and unconstitutional surveillance of the American people. So I'm going to play this part so anybody who didn't know this from 2013, people's memories are so short. Everybody was shocked with Edward Snowden's information, knowing that the American people, that they had been surveilled all this time. Thanks to him, we found this out. And it was terrible. I remember when it happened. But some people don't. And so I'm going to play this because whoever doesn't know is going to learn what happened.
Rumble's system update. He won a Pulitzer Prize in 2014, which we mention every time he comes on. Well, we don't always mention what it was for. It was his reporting at The Guardian at the time, based on the documents that were provided to him by Edward Snowden, whose name was mentioned non-stop at the Gabbard hearing today. Glenn, that must have been surreal for you. I mean, you knew it was coming, but if you had walked into the room and offered to testify at that moment, they would have said yes in a heartbeat to cross-examine you like they did with Tulsi. Let me play a little sound before we get into it. And I'll kick it off with, I'm going to do 3 sound bites. Okay, and I'm going to set it up, and then you're going to take it on Snowden. But I want to give the audience a feel. Here, first is a Democrat. He was the one who first started it, Senator Angus King, Democrat of Maine. His was rather gentle. Here's how it went.
The first item, Edward Snowden perpetrated the largest and most damaging public release of classified information in U.S. intelligence history. Snowden caused tremendous damage to national security, and the vast majority of the documents he stole have nothing to do with programs impacting individual privacy. But you don't recall ever seeing the work of that committee.
I'm aware of those conclusions drawn.
Edward Snowden. Were you aware at the time?
Yes, I was, Senator. Edward Snowden broke the law. There's no question about that. He should not have released all of that information that caused that harm.
So he broke the law, but it wasn't all that serious? Is that what you thought in 2020?
I take very seriously upholding our Constitution. Confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I would take seriously the responsibility to protect our nation's secrets, just as I have for almost 20 years of holding a security clearance of some sort myself.
All right, I lied. I'm going to show you 2 sound bites because they're too long. That was a Democrat. Now here's Republican James Langford of Oklahoma trying to dig down on Snowden too.
Was Edward Snowden a traitor?
Senator, my heart is with my commitment to our Constitution and our nation's security.
Ours too.
Thank you. Yeah. I have shown throughout my almost 22 years of service in the military, as well as my time in Congress, how seriously I take the privilege of having access to classified information.
Was he a traitor at the time when he took America's secrets, released them in public, and then ran to China and became a Russian citizen?
Senator, I'm focused on the future and how we can prevent something like this from happening again.
Well, they didn't stop there, Glenn. As you know, I guess I will play it, forgive me. I just want to set it up properly. Michael Bennett, he's a Democrat from Colorado, went all in and was not happy that she would not sign on to the T word, traitor. Watch.
Was Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
Senator, I will also repeat my answer. He broke the law.
You said.
Senator, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will work with you to make sure that there is not another Snowden-like leak.
Media, it's not a moment to propagate theories, conspiracy theories, or attacks on journalism in the United States. This is when you need to answer the questions of the people whose votes you're asking for. As my colleague said, this is not about you. It's about the people that serve the intelligence agencies of the United States.
About the deep state. Got it.
Is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America? That is not a hard question to answer when the stakes are this high.
Sure.
Senator, as someone who has
your
served
answer,
in
yes
uniform,
or no, is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
as someone who has worn our uniform in combat, I understand how critical our national security is.
Apparently you don't.
Okay, Glenn. Having set it all up, your thoughts?
Obviously, the question of what Edward Snowden did, whether he did everything exactly the way people think he should have, is a point that can be debated, has been debated for a long time. One thing I will note is that at the time of the reporting, there was a lot of support both from the left and the right, the kind of anti-establishment populist wings of both parties. I remember it very well. And it was the centrist bipartisan establishment wing that was enraged by what Edward Snowden did, because what he did, I think we have to remember, is in this question of whether he's a traitor. Let's remember that, like Tulsi Gabbard, Edward Snowden, after 9/11, went to enlist in the United States Army. He heeded his government's call to go to war to defend his country. He then went to work for the CIA and the NSA, and only there did he discover that the NSA was doing things that it was never supposed to be doing, namely turning its very powerful surveillance tools onto its own citizenry. It was always supposed to be directed outward and spying on Americans without warrants in ways that Obama's national security DNI, his chief intelligence officer, James Clapper, falsely denied to Congress that they were doing. And he felt duty-bound to come forward and let his fellow citizens know. And some of the programs we were able to reveal as a result of what he did ended up being declared both unconstitutional and illegal. And none of the people on this committee are angry about that. They're only angry at him for having exposed it, because these people on this committee have supreme loyalty to the part of our government that's secret and that has been abusing its power, which is why President Trump picked her to go in and confront that. The other thing I want to say, Megan, this idea of who's a traitor or not, being a traitor means you tried to betray your country, you tried to harm your country and help your enemies. Edward Snowden had this archive of information that he was entitled to have. He had classified top secret security clearance. Think of all the things he could have done with that archive. He could have sold it to some foreign government or some group of non-state actors that made a huge amount of money. He could have passed it secretly to America's enemies. He could have dumped it all on the internet without regard to what it was exposing. He did none of that. He came to American journalists, myself, who was working at The Guardian, Laura Poitras, who was working with The Washington Post, and he said, I only want you to reveal what is necessary to reveal that's in the public interest for Americans to know. And all the decisions that were made about what got released and what weren't were decisions that we as journalists made.
This is really important here. You know, I just watched the Edward Snowden movie a year or so ago. But, yeah, as you can see, they were trying to say that, oh, well, the information he put out, it wasn't just the surveillance. If you watch the hearing, they tried to make it sound like Snowden was reckless and put out sensitive material that would have hurt America. Well, none of this did. And as you can see, Snowden told them, you know, just put out what's relevant to the surveillance stuff. And then you hear Snowden here saying Glenn Greenwald saying, we, the journalists, sift through everything and to find the surveillance portions and to weed out what was needed to be told for the public. So it wasn't even Snowden, technically, who made this decision.
No role in deciding what was released and what wasn't. And the vast majority of the archive to this very day was never released because we acted in accordance with his very conservative views about how the archive should be treated. So again, you can dispute things he did, say he should have done things in a different path. But the idea that he was a traitor when he could have done so many things to harm the United States and everything he did was about protecting the privacy rights of American citizens as guaranteed by the Constitution that courts said were being violated. That's why Tulsi defended him. Not because she believed everything he did was perfect, but because she knew that he was the only person with the courage to come forward and risk his liberty and risk his life, which he did in a very courageous way, simply to let American citizens know what their government was doing to them in the dark. And I think this kind of histrionics about demanding that she call him a traitor is ridiculous. And the one last point I wanted to make, Megan, quickly, if I could, I know Tulsi, I have a lot of respect for her, even though I disagree with her on things. I was just talking to your team about this. If you look at those clips you just showed, Tulsi knew so well that if she had just called him a traitor, her path to confirmation would have been much clearer. But she doesn't think he's a traitor, so she refused to do that because she's not willing to say things she doesn't believe in order to advance her own career or gain power, which speaks extremely well of her character.
I actually was thinking about that because I feel like if you'd been out there, you would say, no, he's not a traitor, and let me explain why. Why do you think because she just knew she'd be losing too many Republican votes in particular if she was just forthright?
And maybe even Democrats. Probably Republicans, though. If she had said no, that she does not think he's a traitor, her confirmation possibilities would be over. They're already at risk, but it would have been over. And so you could say, yeah, she should just do it on principle and go down with the fight, and then they'll just put somebody in that seat after her who says, yeah, Snowden's a traitor, he should be murdered, the government did nothing wrong, the CIA did nothing wrong, or the NSA. What's the victory in that? But the fact that she wouldn't affirm false claims, I think, is what made what she did so admirable. I wish she had said no, but if she had said no, her nomination would have been destroyed.
So it was striking to me to see how much time was spent on that. Granted, I was only there for about an hour and 15 minutes of the whole thing, but almost that entire time was spent on Snowden. I was thinking.
Okay. There you go. A lot of really good information I shared because some people might have not caught all the little details of how this information, how Snowden put out this information in 2013. What went about that, because the movie was out several years ago, and I'm just saying that maybe people forget, today, in today's world, you forget the news in 2 days or whatever, and something happened years ago and a lot of people just don't remember. It's just probably because there's so much with the 24 news cycle, there's just so much to try to take in. So, that's just how it is nowadays. But I wanted to share this. I hope that both of this information on the January 6th and on the Snowden thing was helpful to you and that you got a lot out of it. And I want to say thank you for watching. Please follow my channel, like my videos, share my channel, share my videos so that my little channel can get out there more than what it is now. Appreciate all your support and watching all my videos and following me especially. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. Until next time.